Eric put his hands on the desk, his fingers beating lightly as he looked at a framed portrait of the family from years ago. A reminder of simpler times when loyalties were clear and betrayals were rare. "Ridge," he said, his voice firm but tinged with skepticism, "this doesn't add up. Stephanie has been gone for years. And Thomas? He's been in Paris developing his own line. Why would they show up now together with no word for us?" His tone conveyed the weight of a man who had witnessed far too many plans unfold in the fashion industry, where beauty frequently disguised ulterior goals. Ridge shook his head, his jaw tightened. "It's not only that, Dad. Thomas has been aloof, yet he has remained in touch. He wouldn't just waltz back into Los Angeles with Stephanie, without informing us. Something is off. This smells like a stunt." Ridge's voice had the protective edge of a father who had previously dealt with Thomas's rash decisions. The younger Forrester had a history of risky decisions from his designs to his personal life, but this felt like something Thomas could not have predicted. The rumor began that morning when Hope Logan, Ridge's stepdaughter and Thomas's former flame, rushed into the office, her complexion pale and her customary poise frazzled. She had overheard a talk at Il Giardino, an exclusive restaurant where Los Angeles's elite sometimes congregated. Two designers from a competing fashion firm had been chatting about seeing Thomas and Stephanie at LAX, stepping off a private jet, their faces hidden by sunglasses but their presence undeniable. Hope's voice trembled as she told the story to Eric and Ridge, her palms clenching together. They claimed Stephanie looked precisely the same, as if she hadn't aged a day. And Thomas, he was beaming as if he had some tremendous secret. "I'm not sure what to believe, but people are talking." Eric had listened in quiet, his thoughts whirling. Stephanie Forrester, his ex-wife and the unwavering force behind Forrester Creations' ascent to fame, has been a ghost for years. Her departure from Los Angeles had been cloaked in mystery, with the family believing it was due to a combination of health concerns and a desire for isolation. The prospect of her returning now with Thomas no less, felt like a plot twist lifted from one of the soap operas that inspired their designs. Eric's heart wrenched at the notion of seeing her again, but his senses advised him to go cautiously. Stephanie had always been a strategic thinker, and there was a reason she was back. In contrast, Ridge was less nostalgic and more pragmatic. "If this is true," he replied, standing and moving about the office, "then Thomas is up to something. He is my son, yet he is not above pulling a prank to prove a point. And Stephanie? She would never return solely for a family reunion. There is a play here, Dad. We need to figure out what it is before it explodes up in our faces." His voice reflected the despair of a man who had spent years negotiating the intricate web of Forrester family drama, where love and ambition were frequently indistinguishable. The office door slid open and Brooke Logan, Ridge's wife and Hope's mother, entered, her presence dominant as usual. Her blonde hair was combed back, and her fitted outfit hugged her figure, demonstrating her lasting role as a Forrester model and CEO. "I just got a call from Carter," she explained, referring to the company's COO. "He has heard the same rumors." Apparently, Thomas and Stephanie were seen last night at the Forrester mansion. The staff claimed they had been there for hours, searching through old files in Stephanie's study. "What are they looking for?" Her gaze shifted between Eric and Ridge, looking for answers neither could supply. Eric leaned forward, clasping his hands together. "The mansion. That is a strong statement. If they are going through Stephanie's old files, they are looking for something specific. Contracts, perhaps. Or designs. Something from the early years of Forrester Creations." His thoughts drifted to the company's early years, when Stephanie's vision and ruthlessness transformed a tiny design studio into a global brand. These files contained secrets, deals, conflicts, and even scandals that, if discovered, might shake the industry to its core. Ridge halted, pacing, his expression hardening. "Or they are preparing a takeover. Thomas has been advocating for further control over the corporation. He's talented, but he also has ego. And Stephanie? She built this place. If she comes back, she may try to regain what she believes is hers." The thought lingered in the air like a thunder cloud. The Forrester family has previously experienced internal power battles, but Stephanie's homecoming, along with Thomas's desire, may spark a war that would make previous fights appear minor. Brooke shook her head, her voice stern yet filled with concern. We cannot jump to conclusions. Thomas adores this family even if he has committed mistakes. Stephanie has always had her own way of doing things, but she would not harm Forrester Creations. We need to talk to them and figure out what's going on. Her pragmatism clashed with Ridge's mistrust, yet her comments were powerful. Brooke had watched the family go through numerous crises, and her impulse was to seek clarity over turmoil. Eric nodded slowly, his thoughts still preoccupied with the prospect of Stephanie's return. Brooke is right. We need to see them for ourselves. If they are at the mansion, we will go there tonight. No games or rumors, just answers. His tone was firm, yet underlying it was a glimmer of hope. Stephanie had been his companion, adversary, and love. If she was actually returning, he needed to gaze in her eyes and figure out why. As the group considered their next step, word spilled beyond Forrester Creations. At Spencer Publications, Bill Spencer sat in his corner office, a smirk on his lips as he went through a text message from a LAX insider. Thomas and Stephanie, huh? He mumbled, reclining in his leather chair. This is gonna shake things up. Bill had no fondness for the Forresters, but he admired their talent for drama. If Thomas and Stephanie returned, it meant trouble and opportunity. He took up the phone and called his son Liam, who worked closely with Hope. Find out what Hope knows about this Thomas and Stephanie thing, he said with urgency. If there's a crack in the Forrester empire, we're gonna exploit it. Back at Forrester Creations, the afternoon dragged on with a strained atmosphere. Hope fled to her office, peering at a sketch of a gown she was working on, but her thoughts were elsewhere. Thomas's homecoming triggered old emotions, love, betrayal, and longing. Their history was a tapestry of passion and agony, and the notion of him returning to LA, possibly with Stephanie's approval, made her heart accelerate. She remembered the fire in his eyes when he talked about his goals for Forrester Creations, which she had once shared. What about now? She wasn't sure what Thomas wanted, or what she wanted from him. Meanwhile, at the Forrester estate, the air was heavy with secrets. The enormous mansion, with its marble floors and soaring ceilings, resembled a museum of the family's history. Thomas stood near a window in Stephanie's old study, his shadow standing out against the fading daylight. He was older now, with chiseled features and a manner that reflected his experience. Across the room, a woman sat at the desk, her stance majestic and her hair a familiar blonde color. She rifled through a stack of yellowed paperwork, her actions precise yet unhurried. If it was Stephanie, she still had a strong presence. The mystery was why she had returned, and what she wanted from Thomas. As night fell, Eric, Ridge, and Brooke arrived at the estate, driving up the winding path. The lights in the study gleamed like a beacon in the dark. Ridge's hand tightened around the steering wheel. Whatever's going on, he murmured quietly, we're about to find out. Eric nodded, his pulse racing with both anticipation and dread. Brooke reached for his hand, providing a silent reassurance. They climbed out of the car and approached the home, prepared to face the demons of their past, and the reality that awaited them. Inside, Thomas heard the car's engine and looked at the woman behind the desk. They're here, he said, his voice firm but tinted with an inexplicable emotion, perhaps exhilaration or defiance. The woman looked up, her lips curling into a little smile. Good, she answered, her voice bearing Stephanie Forrester's distinctive tone. It's time they knew. The door to the study opened, and the Forresters came inside, their gaze fixed on the figures before them. Eric's breath caught in his throat when he noticed her, Stephanie or someone who looked exactly like her, sitting at the desk as if she'd never left. Ridge's jaw tightened, his gaze going to Thomas, who stood erect and unyielding. Brooke's grasp tightened around Eric's arm, her intuition telling her that this moment would alter everything. Welcome, the woman murmured, rising from her chair. Her voice was kind but firm, a tone that had once dominated boardrooms and destroyed hearts. We have a lot to discuss. Eric's voice sounded barely above a whisper. Stephanie, he inquired, his gaze scanning her face for confirmation. She returned his stare, her expression opaque. Yes, Eric, she answered. It's me. Ridge moved forward, his skepticism boiling over. This is impossible. You have been gone for years. And Thomas, what the heck are you doing? What is this about? His voice increased as exasperation over unanswered questions spilled out. Thomas raised a hand, his demeanor calm yet determined. Dad, please listen. This is not a game. We're here for a huge reason. And it will change Forrester Creations forever. The room grew hushed, the weight of his words falling on them like a storm about to break. Stephanie's eyes glittered with a familiar fire, and Eric and Ridge realized for the first time that whatever Thomas and Stephanie were plotting was not a rumor. It was real and already in motion. As the night progressed, the Forresters discovered revelations that called into question their allegiance, lineage, and even their sense of their own family. Thomas and Stephanie's return was more than just a homecoming. It was a reckoning. Nothing would ever be the same in the world of haute fashion, where beauty concealed ambition and love was entwined with betrayal. The encounter in the study continued into the early hours, with each confession ripping back layers of deception and yearning. Stephanie mentioned her time abroad, alluding to a voyage of self-discovery that had led her to uncover a secret from Forrester Creations' past. A truth she believed might either save or ruin the company. Thomas, meanwhile, disclosed his own motivations. A desire to reinvent the Forrester brand, not as a form of rebellion against his family, but as a means of securing its survival in a competitive sector. However, his union with Stephanie generated more questions than answers, and the records they'd been analyzing hinted to a power play that may tip the scales of dominance. Eric listened, divided between his feelings for Stephanie and the distrust her unexpected return caused. Ridge, ever the protector of the family legacy, questioned Thomas's intentions, looking for evidence of deception. Brooke, torn between her devotion to Ridge and her sympathy for Thomas's enthusiasm, urged everyone to find common ground. But finding common ground was difficult in a family where trust was a delicate currency. As dawn broke over Los Angeles, the Forresters exited the estate with more questions than when they entered. Stephanie's reappearance was no mirage, but her motivations remained unknown. Thomas's ambition was evident, but his methods were unclear. And the documents, contracts, patents, and a mystery letter from decades ago suggested a scandal that could derail everything the Forresters had accomplished. Back at Forrester Creations, word of the fight circulated rapidly. Hope struggled with her feelings for Thomas, split between the man she once loved and the one who now appeared to be playing a hazardous game. Bill Spencer, sensing blood in the water, began devising strategies to capitalize on the Forrester family's distress. Other players, rival designers, scorned associates, and even family members with their own agendas, began to gather, ready to grasp their opportunity. The days that followed were a blur of planning and mistrust. Eric and Ridge combed through the company's records, hoping to anticipate Stephanie's next move. Brooke contacted old acquaintances in the hopes of learning more about Stephanie's time abroad. Meanwhile, Thomas began rallying support among Forrester Creations' younger designers, promoting his vision of a daring new era. Stephanie, ever the chess master, maneuvered her pieces with precision, meeting with lawyers, investors, and even a couple of Forrester's longtime adversaries. The tension reached a peak at the annual Forrester Creations fashion show, a glitzy event that gathered the industry's elite to Los Angeles. The runway was set, the designs were immaculate, and the crowd was buzzing with excitement. But all eyes were on the Forresters, waiting for Thomas and Stephanie to make their move. As the first model went onto the runway, the audience fell silent. Thomas stood backstage, his countenance impassive, as Stephanie watched from a private box, her attention concentrated on the family she had created and the heritage she was determined to recapture. The show was a huge success, but it was just the beginning. In the weeks that followed, alliances shifted, secrets were revealed, and the Forrester family had to choose between uniting to safeguard their empire and allowing their differences to rip it apart. Thomas and Stephanie's return had sparked a fire that would spread over Los Angeles, leaving no one unharmed. And as the city gleamed beneath the California sun, the bold and the beautiful confronted their most difficult task yet: a battle for control, love, and the soul of Forrester Creations.